QPR extended their winless run in the Championship to 7 matches on Saturday with a 2-1 loss at Huddersfield Town. That now puts us 4 points from safety already. As usual, here is my take on the match. This was Darren Moore's first win with Huddersfield in 5 attempts and Huddersfield's first win in 6 league matches. They hadn't won since their 2-0 victory over Rotherham, which also came on the back of their first league win against West Brom the week before. Going into this match, Huddersfield had won 2, drawn 5 and lost 4 so far this season. And to be honest, they've been looking as poor as QPR. They've been similarly hopeless at scoring goals, with no more than 1 goal scored in their previous 4 matches. Now, they started the season with Neil Warnock after last season's impressive turnaround. He signed a 1-year contract in the summer, but he went on to leave Huddersfield last month, with the club wanting to make a more long-term appointment, hence bringing in Darren Moore. Now, this is always going to be a must-win for QPR. Huddersfield was sat in 19th, QPR of course were free from bottom, and coming into this match on the back of a 4-0 home loss to Blackburn Rovers before the international break. Many QPR fans, myself included, had hoped that the international break would be used to sack and replace Gareth Ainsworth, especially with multiple candidates becoming available, the likes of John Eustace being relieved of his duties at Birmingham, and depending on whether you're a glutton for punishment, Michael Beale becoming available from Rangers. Instead, what we got was more or less complete radio silence from the club. No word from the board, no word on social media, until Gareth Ainsworth's pre-match interviews began on Thursday and we realised that he was still at the club. Now, 2 weeks of preparation to transform this side into a winning team again led him back to the 3-5-2 that he abandoned after the Leeds match. Of course, against Blackburn Rovers, he had switched to a 4-4-2, which was always going to be an incredibly brave choice given that we had no Steve Cook, no Morgan Fox and no Sam Field. So for Huddersfield, he went back to the old system and he made 3 changes. Kakai came back in for Lakesh, Field returned to the team for Duke McKenna after serving his ban for his 5 yellow cards, and most bizarrely of all, Albert Adoma got his second start of the season, coming in place of Lyndon Dykes, of course playing on the wing. Now that's 2 league matches in a row that Paul Smith hasn't been in the starting team. He got dropped after the loss away at Leeds, and he played twice for Northern Ireland over the international break, scoring a goal in his first match. Seems a strange decision when he was giving us a real outlet, a real pace that this team has so sorely lacked. Can't really understand the thinking there. Lyndon Dykes himself played for Scotland over the international break. He played in the loss against Spain. He was dropped to the bench for the match against France, but was nowhere to be seen in the matchday squad on Saturday. I did see some talk about a potential injury in training, but to be honest, it's getting pretty tedious that we see the fit Lyndon Dykes playing for Scotland and the either injured or ineffective Lyndon Dykes for QPR. Being totally honest, looking at this starting lineup, it just doesn't look like a championship team, does it? It's really poor on paper, and unfortunately I expected nothing less than a loss in this match. Now in the first half, despite failing to score more than 1 goal in their previous 4 appearances, Huddersfield bags 2 against QPR in 14 minutes. Let's start with the first goal on the 8th minute, which all began from Kakai taking a throw-in in our own half, and then being subsequently out of position when we inevitably lost the ball. Dunn was turned, the ball was laid off to Radoni, and he moved into the empty space of where our right centre-back should be, and played a cutting through ball past Jake Clark-Salter into the feet of Kean Harrop, and he converted on his first start in a month for Huddersfield. Now there is poor defending all round in this move when you watch it back, but why your right centre-back would take that throw-in and leave that gaping hole, I don't know what to say, to be honest. But we've been exploited down this side so many times this season. It's getting quite ridiculous, to be honest. The second goal, of course, followed just 7 minutes later, this time starting from a Huddersfield throw-in instead. A couple of passes now left our left flank completely open, and the ball was worked to Sorba Thomas into space, who crossed the ball into the box, found Radoni, and he was able to pick a corner of the goal out through a very slack QPR defence. The defending is starting to get pretty similar to last season, to be honest, the second half in particular, where you can just see the players aren't trying, no one's picking up their man, they don't really look like they want to be there. Unexpectedly, QPR did manage to pull one back at the end of the first half, with Jake Clark-Salter rising up in the box and nodding in Andre Dezel's header. On paper, kept us in the game and gave us a shout. But going into the second half, as Ainsworth typically does, he didn't make any changes despite chasing the game. Now QPR did start to knock on the door a lot more in the second half, but the key thing we're lacking is quality. Despite dominating possession over the match, we had 62%, which is very much a rarity for QPR. We had 14 shots to Huddersfield's 6, but just 2 of those shots were on target. And I think, to be honest, when opposition teams are going through spells of not having the ball, they are happy to soak up the pressure because it's very, very rare that we're able to break teams down and cut through them. And unfortunately, that's what happens when you have just one senior striker at the club and he's not even in the matchday squad. Goals have been a problem in this QPR side for far too long, and that is not going to change anytime soon. Closest effort came once again from Jake Clark-Salter, with his looping chip shot just inside the box, arching over everyone and then hitting the post. Armstrong saw it but waited for the ball to come to him rather than trying to follow it in, and somehow he found the ball snatched from his feet by Hellick. Now you can call it unlucky that we hit the post, but it did show a little bit of naivety from Armstrong here, and to be honest just reiterated for me why in any other circumstances this is a player that should be out on loan learning his trade, not a player that we could be relying on yet to score important goals and get us important points. QPR tried to threaten from multiple corners again, but both Jake Clark-Salter and Dunn weren't able to turn their headers goalwards. Now Ainsworth continued his habit of waiting until 65 minutes to make any kind of changes. The first was the most staggering, with Paul Smith finally being brought onto the pitch, but for Armstrong. Now I know what I just said about Armstrong, but he's our only striker in that matchday squad. You're chasing a game, you're trying to get back into it. You take your only striker off. Cannon made his QPR debut on 17 minutes, coming on for Kakai, and both Colley and Dixon Bonner came on for Adoma and Colback on 74 minutes. But unfortunately, none of these changes made a difference, and we couldn't find the equaliser. That now makes it just 6 wins in the previous 42 championship matches for QPR, and I can't see where we're going to turn this corner. No one wants Ainsworth to fail, and no one wants us to continually sack managers and go through people, but it is so clear that he is out of his depth. He had 2 weeks to prepare for this match, and that is the best that he could come up with. A sort of weakened version of the 3-5-2, which we had a little bit of success with, but he's clung on to too long, and we've just become predictable, stale, and unthreatening. Never go ahead in matches, and when we go a goal down, it's hard to see us coming back in. We of course did pull a goal back this time, but we never score more than one. He is frighteningly out of his depth. It's a 19% win rate, which at any other club he would have got the boot by now. But the board's silence is speaking volumes to me. I mean, is this owners that are thinking about selling the club? Is it that we're too close to the red line on FFP and we simply can't afford to sack him? Which, if that's true, why the hell did we give him a 3.5-year contract? I just don't know when this changes. We're barely a quarter of the way into the season and we're 4 points adrift already. I can't really even bear to listen to Ainsworth's interviews because the things he says are insulting, delusional, stupid, and just repetitive. He just comes out with the same spiel every week. We've got West Brom on Tuesday night and Leicester City next Saturday. Both games that we're going to lose, probably by high margins as well. It's just really hard to predict what's going to come next for QPR because he's not going to win either of those games. Does he get the sack then? Does he get until the next international break in a month's time? I mean, if that's the case, he will be gone by then because there's just no way this is turning around. Bad times are continuing and we're going to need a miracle to stay up at this point, I think. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any thoughts yourself, let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed the video, please subscribe. It really helps me out. And I'll catch you next time. Cheers.